So, on the last show, we talked about Cloth Off.
Cloth Off, the app that in Spain was taking the clothes off of the girls that the parents were really upset about, right?
Yeah.
The fastest way to take off your friend's clothes? I forgot what the slogan was.
Well, no, that was Bill Cosby's slogan. And I feel like I've got to try this. I've got to, for science. I've got to know how this works.
Well, you need to know firsthand how this works.
But then I sat and stared at my screen for, I'm not exaggerating, probably a good 5 minutes. I was like, who the hell am I going to use this?
I'm shocked you didn't choose me.
I did. It seg-faulted.
Because nobody wants to see that.
No. No, it said its neural network wasn't big enough to make a dick that big. And I was like, wow, that's a weird error.
Nice.
So I had to go find somebody with a more normal human-sized dick. So you just give it a photo, and then it just gives you back a photo with no clothes.
That person with no clothes.
Yep. I don't want to be the arbiter of doxing a fake nude, basically. That just
you're not giving it out.
Oh, oops.
You're just...
Oh, I didn't realize that was an option. So then I had to Google search who has recently given overpants hand jobs while watching Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice the musical, yes.
And Lauren Boebert came back.
So you did Cloth Off on her, and how did it come out?
I don't. Well, first of all, I don't have a control group to compare it to. Please feel free to go ahead and send that in, Lauren. Look, it put all the parts in the right place. I'll tell you that. It didn't.
It does exactly what it says on the tin.
It does what it says on the tin as it turns off. It took the cloth off.
You should put Bob Menendez into Cloth Off and just see if a bunch of gold bars fall out.
That'd be so good.
Because in his pockets, he's got all these gold bars. Clunk, 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 clunk.
Bunch of cougarants, and he's like, I can explain that. I had those all. I took those all from my legitimate source.
Quiet, please.
Who doesn't keep gold cougarants on them?
You don't have gold bars in your pocket?
What are you, a farmer?
In 4,
Oh my God, that'd
3,
be so funny.
2.
Company presents a truly terrible podcast. Welcome to Nonsense, episode number 39. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm CJ Little.
This is our take on the week's business, tech, and entertainment headlines. This time we'll discuss brand new high-speed rail right here in the U.S. It's National Good Neighbor Day.
I'm an asshole to all my neighbors.
On this day, we do fun activities to bond with our neighboring families. It's a great way to break the ice and build long-lasting relationship for community development. Neighbors are like umbrellas on a rainy day, lending a helping hand in times of emergency.
Till the wind kicks in and they all fold like a house of cards.
My son and his nanny used to know all the neighbors.
Oh, that's cool.
Because they would go walk in the neighborhood. I became known as his dad.
I have been referred to by my neighbors as, quote, the mayor of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Mainly because I do talk to everybody. Most of my neighbors are all extremely nice. And then I also just bring them the big surprise, barbecue constantly. Like,
I bet they love you.
I literally just take pictures. Like a couple of the guys, I just take pictures and just text them a picture, no words. And then they just appear like 15 minutes later. I'm like, how many ribs do you want? And they're like, well, the kids are home and my wife's home. And I'm like, okay, 2 racks.
Let's see, carry the one.
Yeah, exactly. Here you go. Move along.
It's also International Right to Know Day. Knowledge influences our thinking, reasoning, and the way we express ourselves. Most times, we make decisions based on facts and things we know. Well, some of us do.
Yeah, some of us.
Since we live in a society in which we are codependent, it's important for us to know what is happening around us and take action for our safety and improvement. International Right to Know Day supports the idea that everyone around the globe has a fundamental right to seek, receive, and disseminate information.
Yeah, preferably the right information, like the actual right information, not the,
oh man,
I think the earth is flat information.
I think there should be laws that severely punish people who put out inaccurate information, who knowingly intentionally put out inaccurate information.
But then you legitimately have people that believe the earth is flat.
That's fine. If you legitimately believe the earth is flat, that's your own issue. But if you are saying the earth is flat and you know the earth is not flat.
Agreed.
There's a special place in hell reserved just for you.
Yeah, that inner ring. It's the guy that made the fucking micro B plug on the USB. He's in there as well. Have fun with him, just turning it around 15 times. Fucker.
Happy 25th birthday to Google.
Oh, this makes me sad.
This was yesterday. Man, that 25 years went by so fast.
There's a group of people that have only known a world with Google.
25-year-olds.
And then there's everybody else. And you and I are definitely in the other group.
And probably 30-year-olds.
Exactly.
Because the first 5 years of their life, they didn't know they needed to search the web.
When my son, we were in a library recently, and he pointed to the card catalog, and he's like, what's that? And I was like, how much time do you have?
That's Google for books.
Let me explain how we used to find information. The Dewey Decimal System and just all of it. And meanwhile, Meanwhile, now we can do regenerative AI and cloth off. We've come a long way.
Here's the fun thing on Google's birthday. If you went to their website yesterday, you would see an animation that would show you all the different Google logos over the last 25 years.
Oh, that's super cool.
Especially if you have seen all the logos and you know all those logos from all those years.
Yeah.
How's your week going?
So far, so good. It's not over yet, so I still have time to screw it up, which is the way I like to view these things.
Sure.
You're familiar with this being ahead of me with the kids. It is picture week.
Yeah.
So my son, who has a formal dress attire, he has uniforms. They have to wear formal dress
The
attire.
school has uniforms.
Yeah.
He doesn't just have uniforms for himself that he's picked out.
He does. Yeah, it's orange with a number on it, just so they can keep them in line when they're making the license plates.
And they're doing their highway cleanup.
There are 3 different dress options for this particular school. This is formal dress, and he has to wear a coat, a tie, a button-up shirt, pants, and nice shoes.
Now,
and
it can't be just any coat or any
it's
shirt. There
very
must be a specific.
Yeah,
of course.
My 2 favorite parts, well, my favorite part is that he refers to his bow tie as a chin pillow and puts his chin on his bow tie and loves it and wears it all day long. And I'm like, how is this not winning? So today at drop-off, it was the cutest thing because all the primary kids are all wearing their formal attire, and it looked like the world's littlest board meeting.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Just all these kids. It's so cute. And they're all just running around trying to figure out the board meeting.
My son is in 12th grade. We had back to school day at his school.
Yeah.
Teachers who think their job is to weed kids out of a subject.
Sure.
We're weeding out kids who really don't belong in the computer, world.
Yeah.
Your job is not to weed people out.
Yeah.
Your job is to seduce kids with your subject, to interest them.
Yeah.
First and foremost, capture their imagination, capture their interest, and create a classroom full of experts.
Sure.
It is not to weed people out.
Yeah, you're the light for the moth, not the raid for the ants.
Goodness.
I'm assuming the conversations you have with your 12th grade teachers are slightly different than the ones I have in kindergarten, where I'm like, hey, how are we doing on pooping? Are we okay? Is everybody going to the bathroom okay? Yeah, cool. Moving on.
Moving on. Let's get to our headlines.
We should.
Ladies and gentlemen, we might need a drum roll. This is huge. We have an L3 in the U.S.
An L3 car is what he's saying, folks.
It's very exciting. We've had only L2s for purchase in the U.S. up until today.
Yeah.
And now we have an L3. And what that means is even the Teslas, the autopilots in the car systems, all require you to be paying attention.
Yeah.
Fairly close attention, because they're going to disengage and do crazy things, and you've got to be able to override it quickly. This is the first time a car for purchase in the U.S. has allowed you to watch a movie or to be distracted. Now, it will kick out of L3 and give you lots of warning. It'll kick you out of L3 and bring you back to being in control. But at least during the time when L3 is in control, you can do other things. And that's really impressive.
It's interesting.
This is Mercedes, by the way.
This is Mercedes. Yeah, they seem to be starting very narrowly, which makes sense. There's a whole bunch of conditions that you have to meet. Like, for example, you can't be going over 40 miles an hour. It's got to be daylight.
There needs to be a car in front of you that you're following. And, it's basically like if you're in traffic in Los Angeles,
I think
it's perfect.
This is a much better approach than just saying, oh, yeah, it works everywhere. Good luck. And they're like, oh, we didn't think about school buses. Oopsies. This is a much better approach.
It's not the L4 of Waymo.
Sure.
We're not at that level.
Nope.
But you can't buy a Waymo.
No
one comes on and your car doesn't pull off to the side of the road and a voice comes on and someone manually drives you out by remote control if you get into trouble. It is just L3. It does kick you out, and it's only in California and Nevada. It does kick you out, and you have to take control if it gets in conditions it's not comfortable with.
Pretty cool, though. I'm pretty excited about it. I want to go see one. We should go drive one.
I'm totally in for it. Interestingly, Mercedes takes full legal liability when Drive Pilot is engaged, although it depends on individual cases to make sure you're using it properly. But this is a major step forward for autonomous tech, as Level 2 systems still hold the driver responsible for anything that happens.
The liability bit is kind of crazy on this.
They're serious about this if they're taking liability.
They're saying, look, if you follow the rules, we'll take liability. This is something they've never had to do before, right? Like, this is just thinking about the logistics of
no one
this.
else will do it. With L2, you wouldn't do it.
No, of course. But I'm just saying, like, you think about the history of the automobile, they've never taken liability beyond, like, manufacturing defects, right? Like, this is kind of fascinating to me. Like, what happens when it's doing its right thing? Like, it's just driving along and some idiot sideswipes you in their, 1970 Barracuda.
Well, there's 8 cameras or something around it. So you have lots of video of that sideswipe.
It's not your problem now, I guess. Like, it's just like, do I even submit this to my insurer? Like, you just go to Mercedes and say, well, your car was driving. You deal with it. I have no idea how that's going to work.
It's a great question. It is your car, so your insurer would have to be involved. solved.
You
but it
would
wouldn't be
think.
your fault because someone else sideswiped
I wasn't
you.
driving.
It's like the
I couldn't
Waymos
avoid.
that
Yeah.
get rear-ended. There's nothing they've
Totally.
done.
Yeah, or like a sign blows into the Waymo, and they're just like, well, we got to count it as an
Right.
accident. You're like, a fucking sign blew into you. I think you can go ahead and not put that one on the list. Here we are.
Exactly. It's nothing you did. The system has been available for customers for more than a year in Germany, and Mercedes says there have been 0 accidents so far.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Pretty impressive.
Not about 0, not a low number. 0.
Actually 0. BMW, Ford, Jaguar, Land Rover, and Volvo are all working on their own level 3 systems, each company facing delays, legal snags, and other issues. This is not easy to do.
No, it's going to get easier, right? As you start to steamroll this and you get the legislation in place.
Once somebody has it, then
all have
everybody's got to
Yeah.
have it. I mean, then you've got to throw a lot of money at it, and you're behind.
You know, we don't talk about this. I know we sort of talk about the other side of it. I really want to know what the product team is going to call whatever the next version, the L3 is for Tesla, because you already used full self-driving. So
super full self-driving,
really,
extra full
really
self-driving.
Definitely full.
This time we actually mean full self-driving.
Just, there's no asterisk on the end of this one, or that little cross mark footnote. They're not going to put that at the end.
Mercedes-Benz Drive Pilot is offered on the EQS Fastback, which is a top performance, very plush electric car. It has 350 kilowatt DC fast charging that can charge 80% of the batteries in less than 20 minutes.
Wow. That's great.
So it recharges about the same speed as my cell phone, which is now 4+ years old. But still, it's recharging a car. That's remarkable.
I love how you just equated the car to your cell phone.
It's still a battery.
The other nice thing about those Android phones is when you get low in power in your car, you can plug it in and power your car from your phone. You get an extra 3 inches out of your phone. It's
there
great.
you go.
Perfect.
Mercedes has plans to launch a total of 10 EQ branded EVs by 2025.
Wow. 10 by 2025? I didn't know that. That's impressive.
Ambitious. That's ambitious.
Yeah.
Currently, you need to activate the Drive Pilot system via subscription fee through the in-car Mercedes store. Hopefully that will go away quickly. BMW has dropped its plan for a monthly fee for heated seats. So hopefully all those features as a service, subscriptions go away.
I still think all that features as a service stuff gets a bad rap because they didn't force you to use features as a service. They said, if you don't want to pay for the feature up front, you can opt in whenever you want.
Yeah.
I think that's actually pretty cool.
You are paying for the feature because the wires that heat the seats.
Yeah, but in reality, to get the car without that has an incremental cost because now they've got to manage
I know,
a second set of
you and I have
seats.
discussed this.
I mean,
this is kind of cool. The Drive Pilot subscription, you know how much it costs?
$2,500 a year.
$2,500 a year. So really, it's not that expensive.
Technically, what they said is $2,500 for the first year.
Yes.
Pricing
Yes.
TBD on year 2. To me, it's a 50-50 bet of that if that goes up 5x or goes down 5x. Like it could go either way.
Well, as they spread it across more cars
You gotta
and it
believe
goes
it's
to
gonna
their
go down.
lower
Yeah,
end, it probably will come down.
This is the early adopter. I want to have the cool self-driving car.
Mercedes' upcoming MB.OS infotainment system that will be used on all its new cars is ready for level 3, and Luminar hardware will be offered across its lineup, including entry-level vehicles like next year's third-generation CLA. So even on their cheaper cars.
This is the part that makes the most sense to me, is once you get this figured out, your incremental cost to put it across the entire fleet
Zero.
isn't that
Nothing.
much, right?
Yeah.
Like those cameras and LiDAR sensors are only going to get cheaper.
It's cheaper to put the same infotainment system into all your cars rather than have different
careful.
ones.
Now you're making my point about the heated seats, right? Like it becomes cheaper to just put this shit out there in reason.
But then don't charge for it. Let people have it. I mean, $2,500, that's pretty great though. Considering, for L2, Tesla's charging $15,000.
Sure. If you really, well, first of all, let's not use Tesla as a barometer. Second,
Yeah, I know.
if you really want to go after the dealership model and the problems that they have, features as a service is about number 68 on the list of terrible things that they do.
It's true. I'm happy most of this feature as a service stuff is failing.
Yeah.
I'm not sad about that.
I also think about software and software in a box and how that is not the right model because at some point that software needs to be updated. Like I have apps that I rely on every single day on my phone that I paid like $10 for 5 years ago.
Sure.
I need to give them more money because if it goes away, I'm fucked and I'm not going to write it myself.
There is a middle road.
Yeah.
I'm heavily in the Linux world, as you know.
I've met
and
you.
there's all sorts of grants and donations and
Of course.
things for those of us who have a few more dollars
That's what
so that the rest of the world can have free software.
That's ultimately what I end up doing, right? Is I end up going in and at least donating some money to these guys because having been on the other side, obviously, of software development, you constantly have to be updating this. Otherwise, the app dies.
I got to get back to the Mercedes thing real quick because this also is kind of cool. There's consumer level L4 right around the corner. Mercedes is once again way ahead. When you drive to the airport in Stuttgart, you literally can drop off your Mercedes and it will drive itself to its own parking space.
That is the best.
And when you land, you come back and your car drives and meets you.
Your car's just there. That's
your
great.
car comes and picks you up.
That's super cool.
According to the analytics firm Inrix, Los Angeles drivers lost an average of 95 hours sitting sitting in traffic congestion in 2022 with average peak speeds of 31 miles an hour, which is exactly what Drive Pilot's designed to handle.
I mean, I could have used this yesterday. I feel like I lose 95 hours in traffic a week and I never leave my house.
The national average was 51 hours lost to sitting in traffic, and in Chicago, they came in first place with a whopping 155 hours lost.
Interesting. You said the number in LA was 95 hours?
95 hours a year sitting in traffic.
So that's interesting. If you just think like put the cost out, that's about $25 an hour, give or take. If you put the $2,500 over the
course of the 91 hours,
roughly 100 hours,
totally worth it.
Yeah, of course.
For most people, that's totally worth it.
$25 to not have to an hour to not have to sit in traffic. Love it. I'm in.
U.S. sues Amazon in monopoly case that could be existential for the retail giant. U.S. regulators in 17 states have sued Amazon in a big case. The Federal Trade Commission and a bipartisan group of state attorney general filed a sweeping antitrust lawsuit on Tuesday. It paints Amazon as a monopolist that suffocates competitors and raises costs for both sellers and shoppers. Do you buy anything from many other online retailers? I tried to.
Are there any other online retailers? If you ask my children any object in our house and they say, Amazon. Where did that come from? It's one of three places. Amazon, Costco, Target. That's it. Okay. That's like probably 98% of our sustenance.
Well, then that's pretty close to a monopoly. She's not wrong. For online shopping, it's got to be.
Ones. What more do you need?
Are you buying your Target stuff online?
Yes, a lot of it.
Wow. Yeah. In Los Angeles, there's a Target on every corner.
I know. They'll bring it to your house.
Oh, do they really?
Yes.
Like within the hour?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God. During the pandemic, just before the pandemic, they bought a company called Shipt. And it's like, I don't know, it's like $70 a year or whatever. The best money we spend.
I was this many years old. Ford pauses construction of Michigan battery plant amid contract talks with UAW union. Ford Motor Company said on Monday that it's pausing construction of a $3.5 billion electric vehicle battery plant in Michigan until it's confident it can run the factory competitively.
I mean, I'm assuming this is a short-term cash flow savings move. They're just like, well, our revenue's fucked for a while, so let's just lay down,
You don't think that UAW strike is going to end anytime soon?
I don't know. I actually kind of thought it would have ended by now.
Both parties seem to be negotiating seriously in good faith.
Yeah. Some folks are trying to make this story that like Ford's talking about pulling out of battery production in the U.S. That's not what that looks like to me.
I'm amazed that plants like this are even made in places like Michigan, that they don't go to a right-to-work state.
Look, you got a lot of history in Michigan for sure, and there's a lot of skilled labor there that can do these things.
But you know what makes batteries great? Because batteries are basically you're pouring goo into goo and sealing it up and sending it out. You know what makes batteries really well? Automation.
Robots?
Yeah.
I don't think Betty's in the back pouring the goo into the 18650 containers and just being like, oh, that one's got too much. I think they're using automation.
She has a
on
measuring
that.
cup and she holds it up to the light so she can see, make sure she's got enough.
Doing it for 40 years. Exactly. Exactly.
Lithium or
There's a little piece of tape on there. Don't move the tape. If you move the tape, then she can't make the batteries. I don't think that's how it works. But I'm always, whenever UAW is in the talk, I'm always given pause to like BMW makes cars in South Carolina with happy workers that seem to love their job. Toyota makes cars in Texas with happy workers.
All those right-to-work automobile places.
Why are we so backwards on this? Why is this? And I'm from Detroit. Like I want us to keep making cars here.
I want them to make a good living wage.
I mean, most of the stuff shouldn't be done by hand. Fucking battery production. You want to go in the room and smell the chemicals? No, I'm gonna stay out here.
You don't. You really don't. I don't necessarily want a human doing it because that human error is then going to be an issue. Right. By the way, the electric car that I always see that I always kind of get excited about is that Ford Mustang SUV. Have you seen it?
Mach-E.
Yeah.
Mach-E.
Really nice.
I mean, the reviews I've read have been positive. The range isn't great on them, but
I don't have to have big range. For me, that's not really
of course.
an issue.
No, I agree with you on that.
New York's hottest steakhouse was a fake until Saturday night.
Total fake.
Marin's Steakhouse has a near perfect Google rating with 91 glowing reviews. The best steak I've ever had in New York. Words cannot explain how phenomenal the steak was. Chef Marin is a genius god among men. Yet few diners have been lucky enough to land reservations.
Sure.
Marin's website and voicemail state that the restaurant on East 83rd Street in Manhattan is fully booked for months.
Yeah.
An irresistible challenge for New Yorkers who treat reservation hunting like a professional sport.
Yeah.
Most will never get a seat, and here's why. It's not really a restaurant.
Yeah, this is totally fake. So this is like a joke that I think a bunch of like nerds basically got together.
16 nerds who live in a house, who share a house together. They live in like the closets. They're so crammed into this thing.
Yeah.
And they decided on, because you can add stuff to Google Maps. You can change names and, you suggest there's a very little guardrail to it.
Yeah.
And they changed the name name of their house where they all share. They changed it to this steakhouse.
And then got like a bunch of their friends to come. I think some of the guys were like, I've never
First to make joke reviews.
Yeah,
ha ha ha.
Totally. Yeah, but then they actually hosted a dinner, which I thought was kind of brilliant.
And they got all their friends to be waiters and cooks.
At a certain point, it's easier to do this than to just tell everybody that's fake.
They developed a 4-course meal for $114 before tax, tip, and wine.
Take that, New York State liquor license. These guys are going to go to jail.
They changed the Google Maps and they made their house into a steakhouse.
This is brilliant.
Which is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Have you ever changed the name of anything on Google Maps or suggested a change?
I think once because something was misspelled, but otherwise, no.
That's it.
I'm a lurker.
Next to Runyon Canyon, where I hike in the mornings, there is the Trebek Open Spaces. Alex Trebek donated a big swath of land where he used to walk his dog, apparently. It is now city property or whatever. And it's called the Trebek Open Space.
Love it.
Which is lovely. I keep trying to go back, and I need everyone to go in and do this with me. Keep doing it, because if we get enough people who do it, eventually it'll stick. The name needs to be changed to what is the Trebek Open Space?
That's great. I love it.
I can't believe that's not what they called it.
You're just in there copying and pasting it. I'll get on this bandwagon.
Exactly. I need everybody right now. Go to your computer. I feel like I'm the guy from Network. Do you remember?
Yes, you're 100% the guy from Network.
Throw open the window and yell. No, I need you to go to your computer right now and go to Google Maps and change the name of Trebek Open Space to what is Trebek Open Space?
I love that. I'm surprised you came up with this and not someone else before
Someone
you.
much more clever.
You're pretty clever.
Okay, enough with the headlines. Up next, CJ is going to discuss something he doesn't want to tell me about, something
It's
secret.
a surprise. I don't want to tell you.
Oh, okay.
I want you to be caught off guard.
Very good. Let's do it.
As you know, we do a lot of these segments are, what's the word? Sad.
Like depressing topics.
Yes.
It has happened. It has happened.
Can we just do something that's more, I don't know, upbeat?
You're the one who does the kamikaze stories about people who give their lives for the greater good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's happy.
Yeah, the suicide mission story. So today I'm going to try something different.
What do you got?
And I thought it'd be fun because this is something I think you're going to do way better at than me.
Well, time will tell.
And I have the benefit of knowing what we're going to do. And I think you do way better than me. I thought it would be fun to talk about ways that we've seen technology improve sports at large over the past ever.
This is my favorite subject.
I know. That's why I'm like, Jeff's going to do this really well on this, right?
Oh, no, I love this.
So I put down some crib notes for me. I know you don't need them.
By the way, I have this as a topic in my tickler file.
Oh, do you?
I was going to do a segment about robo-umps, basically.
You look at sports and you look at how much tech has affected sports, and it's been kind of insane.
And some of it has been rejected.
Sure.
I mean, can I go off on one for a split
I want
second?
you to go off on all of them.
The NBA wanted to switch to a composite basketball.
Whoa,
the basketball that we use is leather.
Okay.
The problem with a leather ball is no two balls are the same.
Sure, no two cows are the same.
Meaning they don't bounce the same.
Yeah.
They literally, if you hit the wrong side with the ball, it bounces slightly different than if you hit the right side. By the way, all the floors in the NBA have soft spots where they don't bounce the same either.
Yeah.
If you're practicing on your actual NBA floor that you're going to use at game time, you have a huge advantage because you can learn where all the dead spots are.
Yeah.
So they wanted to switch from this leather ball, which, by the way, I've caught one sitting courtside.
Sure.
It's the nicest leather I've ever touched.
I bet.
I've never been in the world's most expensive car. I've never been in a car that has leather that's nice.
This supple.
It's incredible. Yeah. And yet they have to choose from like 3 balls. They have to choose which one's the game ball. And then a couple players, captains of the team have to initial that this is the ball. They actually initial on the ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you're all playing with the right ball.
How many balls do they do this for?
I think they usually test with like 3.
Oh, that's
and then
nothing
they pick which is the ball they want to use.
Sure.
And that's the ball that gets used for the entire game.
Okay.
But they wanted to switch to a composite ball so they would have a uniform ball that would always be the same no matter what.
Okay.
And they put this ball even in retail stores. You could buy one for like $300. They were ridiculously expensive.
Yes.
But the players were all complaining because they passed really hard. Of
course.
When they were catching the ball, it was abrasive against their hands. It was cutting their hands somewhat, or they thought it was because it was coming in so hard. So that ended up going away. And by the way, I'm not even sure it was true that it was hurting their hands. It was just a different surface than the leather.
Different.
They didn't introduce it well to the league.
When was this?
And so basically, this has to be 2006 maybe.
All right. So that didn't work.
But it was great because they were going to switch technologically. They were doing an upgrade to the game.
Sure.
And unfortunately, they introduced it poorly, and so we had to take some steps back. But hopefully that eventually will happen again because that's the right step.
Now, have they like regressed and now it's made out of like yak leather? It's like some terrible leather.
Is yak leather terrible? Why wouldn't yak leather be great?
I mean, you've seen them; they're furry. They can't be that nice.
Oh, I'm sure it's fantastic. I'm sure it's wonderful. Oh, cows are furry. Let's stop using animals. No two of which are the same.
Yeah, totally.
To make the covering for the ball.
Or now hear me out. What
Yeah.
if the NBA just found the perfect cow and then just clone the shit out of it? And then you just have a bunch of cows that are the same.
There you go. Then they'd all be the same. You'd have to cut it all the same way. He'd have to be in the
Totally.
same sunlight. And
That's a robot
There's
problem.
a lot of things you'd have to perfect
have to
there.
be in sunlight. Rotate the cow.
Exactly.
It's been faced to the northeast. Yeah. Okay. So look,
So is this the kind of thing you want to talk about? Because
Yes.
I got a million of these.
Yeah. Good. I'm gonna do one.
Okay.
On-screen visualization.
What's that?
How much better has that gotten? So I go back to especially being a hockey guy early on.
Oh my gosh, when we used to have the thing that traced the puck.
Yeah, Fox
on
track.
screen, so
Yeah,
you could
Fox
follow the
track.
puck on low definition. Standard definition they
Low
called
definition.
it. TV. It was terrible. You
on the
could
potato
never
camera.
follow the puck. I used to hate hockey on TV.
Yeah, you just have to know where the puck is, and that was sort of the. But yes, I go back and watch those old standard.
The guys
def
waving the
broadcasts.
sticks are probably near it.
They're probably somewhere around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most hockey purists hate Fox track. I actually thought it was super cool.
Yeah.
I've always thought it was pretty neat.
I prefer high definition. Now I can watch
course.
hockey and it's fine.
People in high definition now still can't find the puck.
Oh no, I can totally.
But to
follow
me,
the
there's
puck
some
now.
simpler things in the on-screen visualization that's gotten a lot better too, like the clock. I mean, I go back to again old hockey games. They would just point a camera at the clock and then just cut it out and put it on the screen. It was like this terrible
that's
thing.
what they had to do.
Yeah, and now you actually have a feed, which I think is still done visually. I still think they don't integrate with the control board. They still point the camera at the clock. They just OCR it to get the timeout. So they actually have the official timekeeper. But then you got these on-screen graphics,
I don't think
right?
that's the way it works. I think probably there is a timekeeper that is controlling both what you're seeing in the arena and what's happening on TV.
That's a good question.
If you watch NBA games, you will see.
It'll be off now and again?
No, they don't get off, but they do put it on the floor. They do it as an overlay, so it actually appears as if there's a giant clock on the floor.
But that's only on screen, right?
They also put now ads on the floor. Big things that look like they're painted on the floor that aren't actually there.
They do this in hockey too. So in hockey, usually you sell the boards, right? You sell ad space on the boards, and then if it's an out of market game, they just blast over all of that with something different. Which I think is actually pretty smart.
No, I'm actually talking about on the floor, floor where the players are bouncing the ball, and it's like you're going over an ad that isn't there. You're going over clock numbers at the top of the key, and there's no clock. They're not seeing clock numbers there, but it's.
I mean, this is the natural extension of the first down line, right? Which I think has made football so much more enjoyable
I love
to watch.
that. I have loved
and
that.
how good it is. Just how good that thing is.
I want to change one thing on that first down line.
Yeah.
I want to just add that when one of the players happens to walk across they get a little chalk on their shoe, and so that leaves a little footprint on the next two steps.
I thought you'd want them to be a little zapped. Every time they do it, there's just a little something in their shoe that just zaps them.
No.
And it's crazy how much processing is going into that, right? I mean, there's like a truck of computing power that's doing that in real time.
Well, there used to be. Now it's a Raspberry Pi.
It's a 4.
Takes so much less processing power now.
Relatively speaking,
Moore's law. I mean, it's not as fancy and expensive a process as it used to be, and now it's like perfect.
But I feel like
it looks so good now,
which just continues to make the experience from home that much better than going to the actual game, which is kind of amazing. That's. I guess you have more viewers for a game remotely than you do in
when
person,
I'm at the
but
actual
still.
game, I can see the guy with the poles and the chains, and I kind of know where the lines are anyway.
Yeah,
so,
me.
and I don't always have that because we're cutting around on the floor on TV.
Yeah,
we're going all sorts of different angles.
On-screen vision is a big one for me. What else you got?
You know, the big one, and I probably will eventually do a segment on this, is Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
It started with tennis. There was this camera system called Hawkeye.
Okay.
And it was following the ball.
Okay.
And a lot of times there would be calls that would be made that the player would object to. I don't know if you've ever seen a tennis player go off on an official.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious. That ball was on the line. Chalk flew up. It was clearly in. How can you possibly call that out? How many you can miss? Everyone knows it's in this whole stadium, and you call it out?
But it used to happen with a fair degree of, because they would just call things wrong. By the way, actual tennis players, like baseball players, have superhuman vision. And often they're correct. But you also have ones who are lying because they want the call to go their way.
Of course, weird.
Hawkeye solved that problem. It was cameras that were stationed all over the tennis stadium, and it was following the ball, and a computer was following the ball, and it could track exactly where the ball went. Now, when a player would challenge, when this initially came up, and a player would challenge, they could challenge until they were wrong. That ends your challenge. So you don't want to lie. You want to make sure you're absolutely right.
Yeah, of course.
The player would make a challenge. They would say they wanted a challenge, and then you'd have to wait for about 2.5 minutes while the computer calculated a visualization of where exactly the ball went.
Did like a little beach ball come up on the court and just a little beach ball just going around and around and around?
I would love it if a beach ball would do that. No, they didn't do anything that cool.
Sure.
But we just have to wait, and then eventually we would get to see the path of the ball, and you would go, oh, the official was wrong, or the official was right. Or
Sure.
you could zoom in, and you could say, was it on the line? And it would be like, oh, you could see that it was on the line by 1/32 of an inch. I mean, it was like you just get these minuscule calculations of exactly where the ball
1/32 of
was.
an inch. I don't even know you anymore.
They do it in inches. I don't know why. Because they're broadcasting in America,
Sure.
I guess.
Nobody would understand millimeters.
That was a thing in tennis. And eventually it got to be, the next year you'd go to the tennis matches. Now it would only take a minute. And then the next year you go to the tennis matches,
That's
and now
Moore's
it takes
law right
30
there.
seconds.
Yeah.
And then the next year you go to the tennis matches, and it would be like instant.
Well, now,
And-
next year, even better with predictive AI. They'll just tell you the result of the game before you get there. It'll be awesome. 3 shots are going to go out.
All my friends were trying to tell me the results of the USC game that we just had over the weekend. Tell me the results of the game before we played the game. And I was like, there's a reason we play the game.
Sure.
I understand we're supposed to win here.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't all.
And in fact, I don't know if you saw any of the game, but we played it sound asleep. We really barely won. Now on television for baseball, we've been treated to this rectangle that is the strike zone.
Yep.
It's been years that rectangle's been there.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of complexity to exactly what is the strike zone for each individual player, but they seem to have worked all that out.
Sure.
The MLB is reluctant to go to a robo ump.
Yeah.
Those umps really like their jobs, and they like calling balls and strikes, even though they call them, because we see the rectangle, they call them incorrectly a fair amount of the time.
Will they be able to program the robo umps to throw games depending on what they bet on as well?
Some of the minor leagues, they've done it, and it's actually kind of cool how they've done it. The umpire gets a feed into his ear. It's a little thing, looks like he's got an ear pod on. Looks like he's listening to his tunes while he calls the game.
Sure.
And it's a voice that's telling him what the robo ump has called.
Oh, interesting.
Like calls a ball, calls
In
a strike,
real time?
calls whatever. In real time. Oh yeah, it happens perfectly in real time.
Basically, it's another data point that he can take into consideration.
He can override it. He can say,
that's what I mean.
that was
So he
a
can be
ball,
like,
not a strike.
You said strike, I think it's a ball.
I don't think they ever do, because he knows there's going to be a rectangle somewhere on TV that tells you exactly what that ball actually did, and that's what he's hearing in his ear.
If he never goes against it, then why is he there?
He can. Well, there's other things you have to call at home plate. Did this guy make it to base? Did this guy make it home in time? Is this a run? Is this not a run?
Do you think they should get rid of the umps? Do you think ultimately that should be the target?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. And balls and strikes aren't even the worst offender, in my opinion.
What?
To me, the worst offender is did he swing or did he not?
Oh, yeah. So
there is no consistent definition for that swing.
Isn't it a plane?
The minute we can get an AI to consistently call whatever whatever we're going to determine is a swing and whatever is not a swing, we need to get to that as soon as possible.
What is the definition? Is it like because your wrists have to break?
The definition is whatever the umpire sitting on the first baseline says.
the guy in the back says.
It's really random. It's super arbitrary.
And is it the guy? It's
Much of sports. Wait till you get to basketball. We're going to talk about basketball if you want. Oh my God, the randomness of the calls in the NBA is insane.
Yeah.
The games literally go however the refs want them to go. The calls they make, the things they pretend not to see, it stretches credibility to call NBA basketball a sport.
But you could argue that tech at large has made it more fair, I would think, especially with like this instant replay or this robo ump, things like that.
Oh, and the fact that there's now a challenge in baseball, that last year there was a joke of a challenge in the NBA. Whether you were right or wrong, you only got one challenge.
Yeah.
One challenge gets you nowhere.
Sure.
A ref who wants to influence the outcome of the game, all right, so you have your one challenge. I get 900 calls. You get one.
Yeah, exactly.
Always their excuses. We don't want to slow the game down with all these challenges. No, you want to be able to control the outcome of the game.
Sure.
None of us are fooled.
I mean, instant replay at large, right? That seems like it's in just about every sport now in some capacity.
In baseball, it's actually great. They go to a center in New York.
Yeah.
Now, there has to be a considerable amount of evidence that what was called on the field was incorrect.
Yeah.
But it's kind of great. I mean, just the fact that they have it is great.
And again, I don't know what is still the case, but for a while there, and I think still, all goals in the playoffs in the NHL automatically go to Toronto for a review.
That's fantastic.
And they make sure that it's a legit, which I think is generally a good thing.
That's fantastic.
Just to make sure like nobody missed anything.
Yeah, I am not of the opinion that the refs or the umps are part of the game.
Sure.
Their errancy is part of the game. I don't think that's the case. We're asking these people to play this sport at the very highest level of the world's players.
You want the calls to be black and white.
Yes, you want those people to be judged fairly. And the fact that with technology we can judge what they do fairly means we should use technology.
Yeah. Under the sort of headline of keeping it fair, it also seems like testing has gotten a lot better. Granted, the drugs have gotten a lot better too, like synthetic drugs, but it seems like testing at large.
Oh, I think testing's gotten so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, the nice thing is we keep their samples around.
Sure.
And we will eventually catch them, even if we don't catch them in the year where they make their, where they get away with using their growth hormone or whatever they're using. We will eventually catch them.
Where is all that shit? Is it in like the warehouse scene at the end of Raiders? Just like that warehouse that goes forever?
Giant warehouse of pee vials.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like,
I don't know if they keep blood too, but they definitely keep urine.
That's a Kirk Gibson 1986 right there. Whoa, let me tell you. Oh, it stood up the test of time well. Like what? I mean, it's all somewhere, right? It's all got to be cataloged somewhere.
Oh, sure.
That's got to be.
And I'm sure it's got to be kept at
parties.
certain temperatures. I'm sure there's all sorts of things that you have to know.
Sure.
Exactly how everything has to be kept.
Nice to meet you. My name's CJ. I have a podcast. Who are you? I'm Dan. I catalog all the Major League Baseball piss. I collect molds, spores, and fungus. Oh yeah, and baseball piss.
Good job, Dan.
That's kind of crazy.
The more technology that you can get in sports, the better. And the sooner we can get, better umping and better reffing in all sports, the better.
Even the fields, like we talk about what a Dodger Stadium, the French drain that it's built on, but even just the surface itself, like where the Cardinals play in Arizona, they literally can wheel the entire field out into the sun.
Oh, that's wild.
The entire field comes out from underneath the stadium out into the sun so that they can air it out.
Now, there is a lot of discussion about artificial grass, if artificial grass should be used in sports.
There have been studies that show, I think in the NFL, that there are more injuries.
Aaron Rodgers, that's the one that we're all talking about today.
Yeah, foot and ankle injuries are higher in artificial turf versus grass. But then conversely, I believe in professional soccer, they see lower injuries on turf than on grass.
I wonder why that is.
I have no idea. I'm assuming it's because of the way they play the sport. But also football, you're running your head into each other nonstop. Like
the least of your worries is your ankles.
Maybe the grass isn't. Exactly. Maybe the artificial turf did you a favor.
Doesn't really matter if we're running on carpet or if we're running on sand or whatever's under our feet. That's not the biggest problem.
But it is pretty crazy how far that's come. I mean, just looking at turf from like early turf of the 70s and 80s, that was terrible, to where now it seems like it's much more forgiving than what we had 50 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there are a bunch of other ways that technology has improved sports, but I felt like this was a good bit of things I just take for granted every day when I watch sports.
And it's improved sports enormously, and the future is very bright. It will continue to improve
I hope so.
sports.
Let's go forward, not backward.
There's no end in sight.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
All right, up next, Jeff's going to talk about high-speed choo-choos?
Trains, yes.
Choo-choo trains.
High-speed rail.
Wait, do they still go choo-choo, the high-speed trains?
Well, we're going to talk about that. Some do, sadly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't wait.
It's not a perfect world. I was on the beach in Punamita, and not a friend, but an acquaintance sat down next to me, had decided he wanted to run for mayor of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, great. What are your plans? What are your ideas? We said, well, my big thing that I can do is I can save this city I have lots of ideas for saving this city a ton of money.
Yeah.
I was like, that's never going to get you elected, but what are your ideas? Give me your big one. And he said, well, for one thing, we're spending billions of dollars digging all of these subways and putting in all these light rail systems. We could save so much money, literally spend millions of dollars and just buy more buses.
Yep.
We could have more buses, and then you wouldn't need all these subways.
General Motors shill.
And I was like, okay, we're done. I'm not voting for you. And I explained, I said, listen, I got called for jury duty.
Yep.
Along with all the other people who were on the jury that I got picked for.
Yeah.
I would have to go down to the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles every day.
Yep.
I'm not going to drive downtown. It's an hour and a half by the time I park to get into the courthouse. That's insane. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I drive 9 minutes to Hollywood and Highland.
Yep.
I get on the red line. It takes 9 minutes for me to get down below where the courthouse is.
Yep.
I come up, I go through the metal detectors. I'm sitting down. Everyone else is coming in. They're exhausted and they're stressed. And I'm feeling great. I've just spent 20 minutes getting into the courthouse.
Yeah.
Because my train is never held up by traffic like your bus.
Nope. Very true.
That LA subway is one of the best in the world. I used to wonder why those stations were so huge.
Yeah.
Because those stations are enormous.
Yeah.
When I first started riding on it, the trains were like 3 cars long.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of empty seats because no one was using the thing. The trains are enormous now.
Yeah.
And now I go, oh, they stretch from one end of the station to the other end of the station.
Totally.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
And they can all load and unload. And that's why we have these big, beautiful stations. The other thing that I love about the LA subways is how high the ceilings are in the station.
Oh,
you just feel like you're in the most opulent, wonderful.
Well, it's cavernous. They dug a giant hole to get to it. You might as well not fill
it's
it in.
just beautiful. It's so different than any other city because
totally.
it's got those high ceilings. It's fantastic. Buses can never do what subways can do. They can never do what light rail can do in terms of speed and moving people along. Elon Musk had this idea where he wanted to dig a bunch of holes and the cars could all drive through the tunnels, and that would be like supplement. But that's just going to be the exact same problem as freeway. It's not the same as putting a train. Trains, you can haul a lot more people in a much more efficient way.
Yeah, he also postulated the vacuum tube.
The Hyperloop.
Which I loved the idea of. I had a real hard time.
Sure, you're never going to hold a vacuum over that much space.
That's the problem, is holding a vacuum that long.
Never going to happen.
Man, you got some crazy physics problems with that. Like bend radius became a real concern. Because if you're doing 680 miles an hour, you can start to feel an uncomfortable number of G's.
He was trying to shut down the high-speed rail from Los Angeles to San Francisco.
Which I still feel like should be shut down, but that's just me.
We absolutely should discuss that in a future episode. But I want to take the remainder of this episode to celebrate something really cool that's happening in Florida. Last Friday, a piece of high-speed rail was open to the public, a brand new piece. Connects Miami with Orlando, with several major stops, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach. And there's plans to expand the service in the future to Tampa and Jacksonville. This is going to cover a lot of terrain, but part of it opened, which is really cool. It's called Brightline. Are you familiar with this?
No.
It is the first U.S. private intercity passenger rail service to begin operations in a century.
Wow.
Brightline is owned by a private company, All Aboard Florida, and is claimed to be not subsidized by the government. All that sounds great. I like private companies. I'm all for that sort of thing. It happens to be completely untrue.
I feel like there's a catch. There's a catch coming here.
Yeah, $25 million came from the U.S. Department of Transportation in 2023 to help fund some safety improvements. $16 million came from the Department of Transportation in 2022 to help fund engineering study. $16 million from the Florida Department of Transportation to help fund the construction. All that seems like a very small amount of money when you talk about something that costs $6 billion. Of
course.
So pretty much we could still say this is private money that has put this thing together. Stop. Brightline was allowed to issue tax-free bonds. So that's $1.2 billion kicked in by the federal government. That's a fair amount of money. Now we're not talking about a private business anymore. Now we're talking about somebody just got a really large check written to them, basically.
What are you counting that number from the government? The fact that it's tax-free? What they would have paid in taxes?
The amount
they
would have gotten for taxes had they those bonds not been tax-free. We allowed you to get an investment that does not require you to pay taxes. We don't normally do that for private businesses, only for something that we really, really want, or maybe for somebody who's a political donor or a friend. I don't want to use the word oligarchy, but there's that. Another thing about Brightline. I love the idea. I'm so in love with trains, so this makes me so happy, but you kind of need to get all the pieces right. I would be happier if this were a public train for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is what the fares will be. If you're a private train, your goal is to set ticket prices as high as you possibly can. If you're a public train, your goal is to set ticket prices as low as you can. Next problem. Brightline is powered by diesel engines. Now, diesel engines emit fewer pollutants than cars and airplanes, but far more than electric trains. So electric trains would be superior. If I had my perfect world, Brightline would be a public train that was powered by electricity. There's a lot of things that you could tweak and fix. Now, it's one of the fastest trains in the United States. Those trains travel at speeds of 200 kilometers per hour, which is 125 miles per hour, making the journey from Miami to Orlando in just over 3 hours. That's really cool. The fare, because it's now open, is roughly on par with air travel. I'm not really sure what would benefit you more, to fly or to take the train. In this case, you're talking about a 3-hour journey. It's going to take you an hour to get to the airport. It's going to take you an hour to fly. It's going to take you an hour to land and get your luggage or whatever. Probably it's a wash. Now, the cool thing is the trains have premium fares. They're roughly double the price, but you get to go into much nicer cars and, all of that, which is kind of fun. Makes the journey a little more adventurous. On the upside, Brightline will help take cars off the road. That's beneficial to all of us. Kind of a cool thing. There's more high-speed rail coming to the United States.
I just have a hard time calling this high-speed rail.
Well, because compared to
everything
other
else on the
European
planet,
rail,
it's 120 miles an hour. And to your point, like it's diesel. Like for diesel, you're crushing it. You're doing great, guys. But it's 120 miles an hour.
So the good news for you is when we do our segment on California's high-speed rail from LA to San Francisco, it's publicly owned, it's all electric, it's 100% renewable energy, and it's traveling at 350 kilometers per hour, 220 miles per hour. In the meantime, congratulations, Florida, on your new high-ish speed rail.
Look, I want to believe that I can take a train at a high rate of speed from Los Angeles to San Francisco in a decent amount of time. I'm jaded. I don't think this is going to be a thing.
It's going to be a thing. It's going to happen in 2030.
2030.
Yes. We're getting our first pieces of that in 2030. We'll get more of it in 2033.
Episode 400 of Nonsense we can do on the train. How's that?
Count me in.
I'm in.
You may or may not be a big fan of high-speed rail, but it's coming, and it's coming at high speed. All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
This past week? Seen or read anything good?
Do you know how the show works?
No. Am I supposed to?
Have you ever listened to the show?
No. Am I supposed to? Again, I wonder. There was a piece that I read that I did not prepare for. I mean, I think it was good. I don't even think you're going to think it's good.
Oh, okay. What you got?
I had to pour over the documentation for CertuNet, which I don't think...
CertuNet?
Yeah.
What is CertuNet?
It allows you to map a serial port to an IP connection on a...
Even I'm about to snore.
Mainly just because they got out of the Stone Ages and updated their configuration file to YAML.
Good for them.
I
Good
can
for
literally
them.
hear our listeners turning off the podcast.
I have seen
right
the
now.
movie Dumb Money.
Yeah, what's that about?
It is based on a true story of a group of ragtag investors from the Reddit page called R Wall Street Bets. Do you know this story?
I do know this story.
Banded together and put the squeeze on at least 2 hedge funds that had bet against GameStop.
I had no idea they made this into a film. This is awesome.
Oh yeah, and it's really fun. It's quite a good film.
Oh, that's spectacular.
Paul Dano, Seth Rogen, Pete Davidson, and Shailene Woodley, now playing in selected theaters nationwide.
You should tell me before you watch these, and then I can watch them at the same time. We can talk about them on the show, as opposed to me citing fucking CertuNet that I read at 5:30 in the morning on Saturday. Like, I'm clearly doing life wrong.
This is a fun movie, and it's really directed by the guy who directed I, Tonya, which I like quite a bit.
Oh man, that's awesome. What is this on? How do I find this?
You got to go to a theater.
I got to go to a theater with people?
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense, a truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stittle.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, our favorite Overcast, even Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Podcastindex.org. Special thanks to our floor director, Ryan Pfeiffer.
Oh, it's good to see Ryan back in the booth again. We'll be here every Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us. I need to get a hi-hat and a snare drum. Wait, I don't even know what the drums are.
Or you need one of those horns.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
There you go. That's what you need.
Bought this goddamn horn. It never comes in handy except for today.